Morning, everyone. Hope everyone is doing well. My name is Elisa Udaskin, and I am a career specialist in career services at JVS, Jewish Vocational Service, and we're located in East Orange, New Jersey, and we also have an office in Montclair, New Jersey. So as we always do, I'm going to start by telling you a little bit about JVS. JVS was founded in 1939, and our motto and our goal is to help people overcome barriers to finding employment. We help people get back on their feet and help them get jobs. Our JobSeekers program, which this webinar is one of them, is fully funded by the Jewish Federation of Greater Metro West and by Project M, and we thank them both so much for their support and their generosity. This morning, I am delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Jeff Flowers. Jeff is a dedicated learning consultant specializing in the design and facilitation of innovative learning solutions. He creates dynamic, active learning experiences that empower clients to discover new, authentic, and impactful leadership capabilities. Jeff began his career in learning and development by leveraging theater and social justice training to empower marginalized communities to lead positive change in their lives and environments. This work instilled in him the importance of facilitation and the transformative power of creating open, honest, and trustworthy learning environments. Today, Jeff draws on these foundational experiences to inspire individuals and teams to achieve their highest potential. Guys, we're in for such a treat today. It's going to be a little bit different than our past webinars in a positive way. It's going to be very interactive. And I'm so excited for you all to be able to be here with Jeff. So thank you, Jeff. And I just want to turn over to you now.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that introduction. I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be here with all of you to explore a topic that I am fascinated by and constantly learning about. And so I'm really hoping that we can discover some things together. And I really want to learn from you, your insights into this idea about influence, and particularly in around how we communicate with one another and what makes us influential. So with that understanding, just a couple of logistics things. So as Elisa said, I facilitate workshops both virtually and in person. And my work originally started in theater. So originally I trained as an actor. So I know what it is to look for a job because the nature of being an actor is that you're constantly unemployed. But fortunately I found some opportunity to use those skills that I learned as an actor to both teach theater as a teaching artist, but also to help facilitate people looking at how do we resolve conflicts, how do we lead others, how do we influence others. And so part of what you're going to get today is the ways in which I have borrowed from the theater and the ways in which we train young actors and how that might help folks become leaders in their own lives and in their own communities, and then leaders of others in their relationships. And so we're going to explore that today. To do that, though, I'm going to leverage the knowledge of everybody in this room. So there's a lot of folks here. You all have a ton of experience in this. This is not something that you don't know about. What we're going to be really looking at is not just what we know, but how we might apply it even more specifically. We're going to go through this very quickly. We only have an hour, a little over an hour, and I want to provide time at the end for everybody to ask questions. But I also want to invite you to ask questions and share thoughts as well, both in the chat and then also come off of mute and talk with each other. One of the things that I've learned, I've worked with adults and adult learning for most of my career, is that human beings learn with each other. And I know that we kind of have a school system that kind of gives us all individual grades, but the truth is that most learning for humans is social. And so learning from each other is super valuable. And for something like this, your perspective and your point of view is really worthwhile. So I'm going to ask that you share that both in the chat, and then often I'm going to ask you to come off of mute and share your thoughts if you can. I know some of you may be in a noisy environment, not able to do that. So let's go ahead and jump in. Want to just, I'm going to share some slides. We're going to be going between the slides and this view back and forth for a little bit. But let's go ahead and get started. Just off the bat, my company is called Gantry One Consulting. Gantry is the device that holds up a rocket right before it launches. That's I'm hoping to help support you right before your launch into the next job, your next career, whatever it is that you're doing. And we're looking at influence and that ability to have impact on others when we don't have authority. Because it's, if you have authority and you can just tell people what to do, you actually don't need to influence them. But the truth is, in the 21st century, most of us, we want to be able to communicate with and move people through influence, not through force. Because that's what people are expecting, both from us as individual contributors and us as leaders. So what I'm going to start with is I want to know baseline from you, what your point of view, when you think about what makes somebody influential with you, when somebody's able to persuade you, they're able to move you, they're able to influence you in some way, what are they doing that works? And I'm just going to ask that you write a couple of ideas in the chat. What's the first couple of things that come to mind for you? And then if there's a couple of people that would be brave enough, I'd love for you to come off of mute, share with us what you're noticing or what you shared.
Start. People that are influential to me are
Yes.
people that actually act. They back up what they say with actions.
Yes, I love that. There's this way in which our consistency over time, that there's a way in which our word and our actions align, and that kind of integrity makes a big difference. Absolutely. What are some other things? There's a lot in the chats, more than I can capture. So this is great stuff. But what else did people come up with? Give me another. Let's do another couple.
Yeah, I said relatability. So being able to find points of connection, either professionally or, personally, just to build that level of trust. Definitely more likely to, listen to what they have to say, be open, and then potentially, influenced.
Love this. There's so much in what you just shared that, it's almost like you read my slides here. But so thank you for that. Couple of things I really want to point out. Relatability, really, really important concept. And the root of relatability is also the same root as relative. And human beings, our ancestors evolved in very small, tight-knit groups in which we were related to most of the people that were surrounding us in some way or another. And so we are hardwired to discern and to evaluate people and decide, are they an in-group or an out-group very quickly. And if they're a relative, we can let our guard down. We can trust them. If they are not, if they are somebody that's not part of our tribe, we are going to be very much on our guard. Because one of the most dangerous things, if not the most dangerous thing our ancestors could have encountered, is a stranger, another human being they didn't know. And so we now live in a world in which we're surrounded by strangers all the time. And yet our brains still function in the same way. And so we're constantly searching and very quickly discerning, is this person part of my tribe or not? Is this person part of the in-group or an out-group? And it's one of the very first things that we do, mostly subconsciously. And so that ability to just be relatable, to find connection, is incredibly important in influence. So thank you for sharing that. So Leslie already started on this. What are some things that do not work when we're talking about influence? What are some things that kind of, yeah, you did that, I'm doors closed, thank you very much. What are some things that don't? I saw the painful handshake. Yeah, if you're like, don't hurt my hand because you're trying. I love that. It's so great. Blame, telling somebody to trust you. Yeah, just assuming that you're going to tell somebody to trust you, right? This is interesting, Sue. Sue put a fake smile, and I actually really think that's super insightful. Human beings are super sensitive to emotions. our wiring, we're constantly looking at people's facial expressions. We're able to read people's inner life way more than we think. And most of it's happening subconscious, and it's always around the eyes. And so if your smile and your eyes don't line up, we can tell. And so, and when we see that somebody's trying to hide something, our defenses go up. And if our defenses go up, guess what? Much more difficult to influence us. So I love that. Thank you for sharing that. A couple other people, come off of mute. What's been your experience? What are some things that really kind of make you defensive, make you shut the door, really limit somebody's ability to be influential with you?
I can say something. I feel like there have been times in my life where I wondered why I was so put off by somebody's like direct authority to tell me to do something. And I think it has to do with the fact that like they sort of just walked into a room, told me what to do, and then left. Like made no attempts to like appeal or like help me to understand why or provide me with like insight and context and feedback.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, this is another thing about human nature that I've kind of really been thinking about and discovering, and I'm curious what you guys think about this. But the idea is that part of us wants autonomy. We don't like being controlled. We don't like being told what to do. We want to think that we're kind of the ones in the drive. We're driving our own life. Everybody is the center of their own experience. And we want to feel like we're in control of what we do. And when we feel like somebody is directing us or steering us or taking control or taking away our autonomy, we have a pretty strong reaction to that. Now, sometimes we got to overcome that reaction. We just got to accept, like, hey, cop pulled me over. I got to pull over and I got to answer his questions, right? And over time, especially in our work, especially if it's work that we care about and we're passionate about, we want to feel like we have some autonomy over it. And that's important to know if you're trying to influence somebody. Because if you are making somebody feel like you're controlling them, they're going to resist it. Their guard is going to go up. And you're going to have a much harder time going through. So listen, this chat is amazing. You could just take all the insights that you guys just put up here in this chat, and you would have a ton to go on and thinking about how to make yourself influential. So it's not knowledge, right? In a lot of ways, we know all these things. The thing is that when it's hard, that's when we need to apply this stuff more, and it becomes difficult. When we meet adversity is when we want to start to really apply these things, because it's easy to be influential with people that are super nice and that you relate to and you have a great relationship with and you get along with well. That's super easy. But try influencing somebody that you don't get along with that well, or it's a difficult relationship, or you don't know, or the stakes are really high, or you're really emotional about it. That's when it's difficult. And so part of being the art of influence is knowing how to master yourself so that in those moments when it's hard, you can act in ways that are going to increase the likelihood that you can get through to somebody else. And sometimes it doesn't even work then, but you're going to give yourself the best shot. And that's what I want to explore with you guys today. How's that sound? Does that sound good to everybody? Cool. All right, terrific. So let's go ahead and get into this. Pull forward here. A couple of things. There's 4 things that I really want you to take away. I'm going to give you a lot of things, but I'm trying to narrow it down to kind of 4 big ticket ideas that I think will really help you in those difficult moments when it's hard, when you're tense, when the stress level goes up, when you're meeting with somebody that's conflict, when you have somebody that maybe rubs you the wrong way. Here are some things that I want you to really consider, and we're going to explore them together. The first is I want you to slow down. We live in a world in which we're constantly feeling like we have to race, that there's not enough time, and that we have to move past this present moment onto the next thing. And part of your ability to regulate yourself and to kind of be mindful and able to apply the right approach in a difficult situation is your ability to see what's happening right now. And that means sometimes we have to slow down. Okay. And it's not as easy as it might sound. And so that's one thing I want to explore with you, the ability to slow down. Second, I want you to pay attention. And what I want you to pay attention to is the relationship, is the other person. Most of you are going to have to go in and meet strangers. You're going to have to meet somebody that you haven't met before, and they're going to interview you. It's going to be a high stress environment. Your blood pressure is going to be going up. Your heart rate's going up. Maybe your palms will be sweaty. You're going to have some anxiety. You have some fear. All of those things are going to be intensified if you start to become self-conscious. Oh, what do they think about me? Oh, why did I wear this outfit? Why didn't I wear a different outfit? Oh, they're going to, right? And there's more that we think about ourselves, the more anxious we get, because we can't control what other people think about us. And so subconsciously we feel like, I'm really uncertain here. This is out of my control. What is in your control is where you put your focus. Where I want you to put your focus to be influential is on the other person. I want you to really see them. I want you to take them in, and I want you to notice what's going on inside of them in every moment. And that's really about how you listen and how you see. How receptive are you to them? And so the ability to pay attention to one thing at a time is incredibly powerful. It's overlooked in our society. I like to say we live in an attention deficit society where everybody is pulled constantly to distraction. If you can be somebody that can hold and pay attention for a sustained amount of time, you are going to stand out. I see a hand up. Bob, you want to say something, ask a question?
One thing I wanted to mention, try to assess initially whether the person you're interviewing with is a decision maker or merely a messenger, because that can affect what you say to them and how it's going to be carried ultimately to the decision maker.
100%. That's right. And paying attention,
Yeah.
you can start to discern it, because they may not reveal it right away, but you may be able to pick up small clues, right? And so that ability to be present really there. A couple of other things. I want you to stay curious. One of the things that really helps us create an environment where people are going to be open is if we're open. Human beings have these mirror neurons. And so we tend to pick up on the emotions of others. And so however you show up is going to affect how they show up. As soon as we start to make judgments, as soon as we start to get into a place of knowing, our curiosity level goes down. And then we start to shut down. We're not nearly as open as we were before. So one of the things I want you to practice is just staying curious a little bit longer. Can you have strong opinions, but hold them lightly? Okay. And then last thing is, I want this idea. This is a concept that comes from the world of improvisational theater, and we're going to play around with this. But there is a way in which what I want you to do is to learn to accept reality as it is, accept what is right in front of you, and then find a way to do something with it, to use it, to build with it to where you want to go. Because wanting things to be different than they are is going to pull you into a place of suffering and pain, because we can't change the way things are most of the time. Most of the things that we're surrounded by, they are the way they are. This person is the way they are. They're not necessarily how you wanted them to be. Accept that and see, where's the opportunity in this? How do I use it? So how do I use what really exists, accept and build? So we're going to play around with all those ideas. Just before we move forward off of this slide, any thoughts about this? Anything that's resonating with you already, or questions that you have? What are we thinking? Where are we at? Come off of mute, ask a question, or put it in the chat.
I wanted to jump in because the last point really sticks with me with the accept reality, where it is. I have a background in applied anthropology, and so what we're doing is we're talking to people who have extremely different like beliefs and histories even than like we do. And so when you're working like at a professional level and you're listening to these people talk about their lives and what they believe to be true, you have to like accept it. Like you can't put on a fake smile and just like, okay, you have to be really curious and genuine and authentic. And I found that that skill has helped me a lot in my regular jobs as well, like professional outside of anthropology jobs.
Yeah. I love that. I love the idea for all of us to pretend we're an anthropologist, right? Just really be, I'm gonna steal that, Michaela. I love it. Just really be curious about where somebody's belief systems are, how they came to their reality, what it is that they're thinking about. Yes, and so I got a question here from Sue. I am going to give you guys a series of slides, not all the slides, because some of them are not going to be relevant to you, but you will have access to a PDF of this material afterwards. Okay, we're going to do an exercise, and it's going to cover this first idea here of slowing down and paying attention. So I'm going to stop the slides here. And I'm going to ask all of you that are, if you're on camera, we're going to ask you to play this game with us. And this is how it works. We're going to do an exercise in which we're going to all pretend that we're a mirror image of each other. Okay. And so the way it works is I'm going to start a movement on my screen, right? And I'm going to ask all of you to just simply mirror my movement as if you were a mirror image. Okay. And then at some, oh, look, you guys are already starting, which is amazing. At some point, I'm going to call out somebody else's name and I'm going to ask them to be the leader and we're going to follow them. Okay. Now, here's the deal. This is not a fake out exercise. Okay. So you have to move slowly enough so that people can follow. Okay. If you notice there's a disconnect, you want to slow down so that we can follow each other even more closely. The other thing is we're going to do this in silence, so keep yourself on mute. Really focusing on staying connected from moment to moment. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and put my hands down. We're going to start. Ready and action. Michaela, you take over the leadership. We're all following Michaela now. Yes. Janet. Eric. Rodnell. Naftali, sorry. And scene. Okay, great. Give yourselves a round of applause. Amazing. All right. So, one of the largest groups I've ever done that exercise with, so I really appreciate all of you playing along with us. And thank you all that played leaders. Okay, I want to ask you about this exercise just very quickly. In the chat, what was required of each of us individually to collectively create this illusion of a mirror, to keep everything connected? What did we have to do to make this happen? So Linda, I see you say, be observant. Absolutely. And you had to be present. Why did you have to be present? What was it that we had to be present? What was it that made this like us stay in the present moment?
So we can watch and keep up.
Yeah, right. So we can keep up because we didn't know what was going to happen next, right? We're watching the leader and we're not sure what they're going to do next. And we're kind of watching from moment to moment, correct? We had to stay focused. That's right, Carol, and really pay attention. That's what this exercise is designed for. We have it for young actors, and we train young actors to use this exercise for a long time to really play. Why do you think we train young actors to do this? Why do you think we use this to train actors? Well, I'll tell you why. Because actors are incredibly self-centered creatures. Okay, young actors go into the into the world of theater because they want all the attention on them, and they want the applause, and they want the love from the audience. And we got to train that out of them because it actually makes for really bad performances. Because great performances, the craft of acting is really founded on something happening in the present moment between people. And that can only happen if we're really connected to each other from moment to moment. And that's a mindset because our minds, for the most part, don't want to stay in the present moment. They want to run off. They want to run off to the future. They want to run to the past. They want to run to what's the next thing. They want to try to solve problems. What they don't want to do is stay in the present moment and focus on what's right in front of them. Okay. And so one of the things that I want you to consider to be more effective as an influencer is how can you stay present? How can you really see the person right in front of you? Now, the other thing about this exercise, and the leaders, you did really well at this, because sometimes I don't get such great leaders. You guys were awesome. Is that leaders, when you're leading somebody or you're trying to influence somebody, you have to move in a way that people can follow. And that means you have to slow down and be consistent and obvious. You could see there was a couple of times we disconnected because the leader might have just decided to do something really different really quickly. And they kind of change very quickly, unpredictably. When that happens, there's a disconnect. And it's okay in this game, it doesn't really matter. But in real life, if we're bouncing around and we're not easy to follow, people check out. And as soon as people check out and we lose their attention, it's really hard to get it back. And so my challenge for you is in your conversations, in your relationships, in the next day or two, I want you to intentionally slow down, really see that person, maybe even actually mirror them so that you're sticking with them from moment to moment, right? Staying right there, connected to them from moment to moment and noticing what are they really doing? Really noticing what's going on for them and watch how that impacts the way they show up with you. Okay. Because it's really an effective way. So let's just cover this here. I'm just going to pull this slide up so you guys, we can just talk a little bit about what we just did here. So a couple of things that this exercise, I think, really tries to highlight. One is this ability to slow down, right? Two is to get your focus off of yourself. So often we are so self-conscious. We're so attached to the way that other people think of us, particularly when we're looking for something from other people. We feel like, oh, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I have to look for a job or if I'm trying to find somebody to approve of me, I get super caught in what other people think about me. And that approval seeking can really be debilitating after a while because I'm just thinking about myself way too much. This is an exercise that says, hey, get outside of yourself, put your eyes, your ears, your focus, your attention on something that's outside of you. It'll help to reduce your self-consciousness. And that's really important. Notice when there's a disconnect. Notice when you're not connected and then slow down. You can move to get that connection back because you see it. If it's not a connection, name it, say it, put it out there. And then finally, the other thing we have to do is learn how to regulate our impulses. So a lot of times we play this game, people want to get funny. And all of a sudden they're starting to do all kinds of crazy yoga poses and weird things with their hands. And it's entertaining, but it's not easy to follow. And so one of the things we want to be able to do is regulate ourselves. And that kind of brings me to the next thing I want to talk to you guys about. And I'm going to have to start moving a little faster too, because we're getting into it, and I find it really interesting. But I got a lot I want to cover with you. So the first thing, how many of you have heard of emotional intelligence? I'm sure that's everybody, right? Everybody's heard of this. And just so you know, it comes from a lot of the research. It comes from a number of people, but one of the persons that really put the code, kind of put the term on the map is named Daniel Goleman, and he wrote a book called Emotional Intelligence. And what he's describing is that our emotional intelligence has two competencies: our personal and the other. The personal is, am I aware of what's going on for me? Am I aware of my own emotions? And can I see the ways in which my behavior is impacting others? Okay. Now that may seem obvious, like, Jeff, of course I'm aware of my own emotions. I'm having them. You'd be surprised. Many of us we are emotional creatures. We suppress our emotions a lot, so much so that oftentimes we're not in touch with what we're really feeling in the moment. Okay. And in theater terms, we say you're up in your head. You're up in your head, you're in your thoughts, you're not in your body, in your feelings. Okay. And so your ability to stay in your body, to stay in your feelings, this is what is going to make you emotionally intelligent. And it's super important because what you're feeling is projecting and having an impact on the people around you. The other place is that, can you regulate it? Can you, and it's not about suppressing emotion, but it's about understanding that the way you think affects how you feel affects how you think, how you act affects how you think and feel. All of these things are of a piece. And so are you able to see what are the thoughts that are driving your emotions? What are the emotions that are driving your thoughts? And can you change them so that you can be more effective? This ability to do this awareness and the ability to regulate only happens when we're in touch with what's going on with us right now. One of the best ways to do it is to breathe and get your mind and body connected. Because our feelings, our emotions, and our thoughts come from two different parts of our brain. And a lot of our emotions are generated from our nervous system in our bodies, while our thoughts tend to come from the prefrontal cortex way up in our heads. And those two things aren't connected very well. And so we have to really be present in our bodies in order to understand our emotions and then to regulate. The next piece is, can you be aware of others? And this is something I think is really important if you want to be an effective influencer. Can you see the inner life of other people? Can you read the room? Are you paying attention to what other people are feeling? And then can you attend to it? Can you attend to the relationship? Can you imagine what other people are feeling and care about it? Can you allow it to impact what you do? So often what we saw in the chat, what makes people feel like lower their influence is when they're just running away with where they want the scene to go, where they want the conversation to go, and they're not paying attention or seeming to care about how other people feel. They're not paying attention to the impact of their choices on others. If you want to be influential, pay attention to, care about how other people feel. I can't stress this enough. Human beings are emotional creatures. We make decisions based on how it feels. Then we rationalize those decisions to come up with some good thoughts that come up with a logic about it. But for the most part, we're making decisions on how we feel. How you make other people feel is incredibly important. I want you to pay closer attention to it. Okay. And the number one thing you want to do, your goal in every conversation, is you want to create emotional safety. You want people to let their guards down, right? Think about it. When your guard is up, are you able to be influenced? When you feel like a little bit anxious, you feel a little bit afraid, are you open to being influenced? Most likely not. right? It's only when you feel safe enough that you're going to let your guard down that you can take somebody else in. And so if you want to get through to other people, if you want to kind of really move them, inspire them, influence them towards an action, you have to create the environment and the conditions where their guard is going to come down, where their defenses are going to come down, where they're going to be really open to listening. And I say that because so often we are focused on our message. We're so focused on what we want, how passionate we are about it. And we think that the way we feel about something is going to move somebody else. But often our passion actually makes somebody even more defensive. They're like, whoa, you're super passionate about that. I have to be careful. I might be overwhelmed by your passion. I might be overwhelmed by your intensity. I'm going to not listen here. I'm going to listen for why you might be wrong rather than why you might be right. Okay. I've said a lot of things over here. We've talked a lot about emotional intelligence and this idea of creating emotional safety. I'm sure some of you have some thoughts about this. Please share with me what you're thinking, what's coming to you either in the chat or come off of mute. What is this making you think of? What are the ideas that are arriving for you?
Yeah. So Jeff, hi.
Yes.
So I think a lot of people, I've been getting some messages also, is about, and we talked about this yesterday, about the connections of what you're teaching us here to when we're
Yep.
going out there and networking, when we're going out. I mean, this is all really good, but I think they will be helpful is like to tie it also into when you're meeting people you don't know, like even just the last concept that you said about wanting people to really sort of like, or even just about connecting with you and not just talking about yourself, it might put them off. So everything that you're saying is making me think in the context of an interview or when you're asking someone for something or networking, how to
Yep.
better navigate that with the tools that you're sharing. So when you're in an interview, so is there anything that you guys can think of some of the tools and some of the
How do
things that
you
Jeff
create, a sense of safety when you're going into the interview? Because I can see this, David put in here, like it needs to be a two-way street. We can't control other people, right? They're going to do what they do. We can only control ourselves. But what are ways in which we might create a little bit more openness in others in some of these situations? So Mary says your facial expressions. Can you elaborate on that, Mary? Would you be willing to just share with us what you mean?
I can take this one. So,
Great.
I think that when you are interviewing, and whether it's in person or what, like in actual physical person or on Zoom, something that most people who are interviewing don't realize is that the person interviewing you is nervous as well. Most people are not very good interviewers, and it's something that they're not trained in. So it's, unless you're with the HR person, when you're with an actual hiring manager, they don't do that all the time. So part of what I would try to do is make them feel more comfortable as well, because they, like, let's say that you're interviewing the person interviewing you is the director of IT, and they're an introvert, but here they need to interview you and they're very uncomfortable. So maybe, Jeff, that's something about
Love
the
it.
interviewer is nervous too. So how can you show up for that initial awkwardness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. And if you're reading it, I think there's a couple of great suggestions in the chat, right?
Okay.
One is smile, right? I think we smiles are underutilized. And even if you have to force it a little bit, right? Find a reason why you're glad you're there. So a lot of people say, oh, I'm really glad to be able to do this interview. Why? Seriously, why? What is it honestly that you're glad about? And then connect to that before the interview. Remind yourself, I have a positive attitude going into this, right? What would be a reason you could be positive about this? Do that work ahead of time so that when you say, I'm glad to be here, you can actually mean it, right? I saw some other great things in the chat too. Ask about their experiences. I can imagine you've done a lot of these interviews. How's it been going so far? Right? They may not want to share with you that. They may be really buttoned up, but you can at least attempt it. Also, I saw Carol put put in here a little bit of self-disclosure. You can always name, you know, I'm feeling a little bit anxious about this. I really want this job. It really means a lot to me. There's a way in which part of the way we build rapport is we start off in a very ritualized way. We kind of, here's my name. Hi, everybody. Here's my credentials. I can give you some facts and information. And that's another level, right? I can tell you a little bit about myself. I can say I have I have 2 kids. I live in New York City. I've been doing this work for 20 years. But I can also talk about feelings. That's the next level up. You know, I'm really excited to be here because this stuff I'm really passionate about these things. I really care about what other people, how helping other people find ways to get better at their relationships, to feel like more free to be truly who they are. And then I can go to beliefs, right? It really matters to me. One of the things I really believe in is, and if I'm talking about beliefs, I'm disclosing that, I'm inviting this other person to relate to me on a whole other level. Okay. And so one of the ways when we think about self-disclosure is, how do you get to feelings? And can you? And it's not always appropriate. So you got to be careful. I'm not saying this is the have to do, right? It's an art. You have to understand what's the right moment. I can't tell you what the right moment is. You have to be present and read it. But if you get to beliefs, if you can share some of your belief system, what you genuinely care about, what motivates you, you're now moving to a much higher level of rapport. And if that person connects with you on that and they see that they have a core belief that's very similar, now you've started to really relate. And that is going to really increase the level of influence that you have. Bob, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes. One of the things I try to assess before the interview, or actually at the interview, what was it about my resume in particular that caught your attention, to find their hot button, their focal point?
Yes. Yeah.
And that might
Love
indicate
that.
what their needs are or where they're coming from.
100%. 100%. And then listening to that answer, not just to the words they say, but how they say it. What is it that they care about inside? So it's great. All right, let's keep moving forward here. Because we're going to talk about some ways to do some of this, and you guys are already on to some of my methods. So I love that. The number one way to create emotional safety. Oh, sorry, let me back this up. The number one way to create emotional safety is this human superpower. It's empathy. It's the ability to put yourself in somebody's shoes and imagine not just what they might be thinking, but what it might feel like to be them. What are the emotions what is the point of view that they might have? Now, you don't know this, you never know for sure, but even the attempt to do it is incredibly important. And all of us, because we're human beings, we have this capability. It's what philosophers refer to as the theory of mind, right? We can imagine what it would be like to be outside of ourselves and inside of somebody else, and what their experience might be like. This is why actors get to do what they do, right? They get to pretend and imagine as if I were the king of Denmark, and my father was killed, and my mother married somebody right away, and I was contemplating, and all of a sudden now I know what it's like to be Hamlet. And that's my version of Hamlet, right? Which is going to be very different than Jacqueline's version of Hamlet, because her understanding of those circumstances will be specific to her. And so when we can put ourselves in other people's shoes, we can use that empathy. It goes a long way to making them feel heard and understood. That is critical to getting people to feel their defenses go down. Most of the time, if we feel like somebody doesn't understand us, we're very standoffish. We feel like somebody's not really listening to us, we shut them out pretty quickly. So now the thing is that you have something you want to say, you want to communicate something. And so we want to figure out, how do I be candid? How do I use candor? I'm honest, I'm sincere, but I also don't want to destroy the relationship. These two things can be in tension a lot of times, right? That when we have conflict, sometimes we have a point of view and it's in conflict with the other person's point of view, or maybe it doesn't, we're not sure. And so we want to preserve the relationship, but we also want to be able to assert ourselves and say what we have to say. And so learning how to navigate this is tricky. And so what some of the research has said on this is there's one way to think about it. And this is just, one way to think about it. It's not the only way, but I think it's helpful. So I want to just pose this to you, is that there are three behaviors that we can that we can apply when we're trying to communicate with candor. One is advocacy, right? We want to present our point of view. A lot of times when you're in an interview, you've got to advocate for yourself. You got to present, here's what I've done, here's how I've done it, here's what I'm about, and you're really presenting your point of view, and you're advocating. The other is you can inquire, right? And inquiry is this idea of asking, really trying to understand the other person's point of view. Bob just kind of gave us an example of that. What was it that stuck out for you? What are you interested in? I'm curious, I'm inquiring, I'm trying to draw this other person out. And then there's a third version that maybe we don't always think about. And it's this idea, this concept of bridging, right? And it's this idea of connecting what this other person cares about, what they're sharing, what their knowledge is. I'm going to connect with it, acknowledge it, and then I'm going to find some common ground between their point of view and my point of view, right? And that is what really great influencers are able to do very quickly. They're able to listen to this other person, hear what between the lines, what they care about, and then find a way that what at the very deep level, what I care about, what you care about are the same. Let me see if I can bridge these two things together. Okay. And that's a pretty unique skill. And I want to talk about how we might go through all three of these. I'm going to do it pretty quickly. I'm going to send you these slides. So if all of this doesn't get totally consumed or absorbed, don't worry, you'll have a chance to look it over. All right, the first one, advocacy. What makes advocacy persuasive, right? You have a point of view. You want to persuade others of your point of view. You want them to go along with you. Well, this is a statue of Aristotle, supposedly. And he came up with a way of rhetorical argument thousands of years ago that still kind of stands the test of time. And what he said is, when you're trying to make your point, there's three different areas that make you persuasive. Oh yeah, that's Aristotle, right? The first is your ethos. That's your character. That's your ethic, right? It's who you are as a person. And that is going to sometimes just who you are is going to make you persuasive, right? Your reputation can sometimes be enough to persuade somebody. Any of you have gone into a doctor's office, you listen to the doctor, well, he's got a white lab coat on, and, he went to school and he knows a lot more than I do about this stuff, and other people listen to him. So, I'm going to listen to him, right? But if he kind of seemed like he was a liar, if you kind of got that this guy was dishonest or, didn't have a strong character, you found out some things about his personal life that you just, all of a sudden you're like, I'm not listening to that guy. His ethic, his ethos is going to determine how persuasive he is. Okay. And that's true for you, right? So you want to think about things like, what's the costume you're wearing? That's communicating a lot. People, what are your values? What are the things that you stand on? How do you communicate your ethic? That's going to be part of, in a very short time, what makes somebody persuasive. The next is logos. And this one is probably the one we most understand because it seems the most accessible to us, right? And that's the logic or our rationale for our argument. It's because of this, then this is a cause and effect logic train that works. The challenge with logic is that if it's just coming from our point of view, people may not resonate with it. We want the logic of our argument to come from their point of view. It has to make logical sense from where they're at, not from where we're at. And that can be challenging. But logic is another way. If your argument doesn't make logical sense to somebody, they're going to throw it out. The third way and the final way is one that I think that a lot of us know about, but we often overlook, which is our pathos. And that's the emotional appeal, right? Pathos is the same root as the word empathy. It means to suffer, actually. And it's that ability to understand the pain points other people experience and to appeal to their emotional response. And And oftentimes we overlook this. So that's why when people are saying, look, the interviewer, they have a pain point here. They don't want to interview. Interviewing is miserable. Anybody had to do any interviewing? Have you ever had to hire somebody? Anybody in here had to hire somebody, right? It takes up way too much time. You're totally uncertain about it. You hire somebody and you just pray that you didn't make a false decision. It is so painful. And so, you know, one of the things that you can do is have some empathy about that, right? Understanding that when you're trying to make the case for yourself, also thinking about what are the emotions? Why might somebody emotionally want to hire you? What is that about? I don't know the answer to that, but it's something that's going to help make your advocacy more effective. Okay. Now, the other aspect of candor is this idea of inquiry, right? This idea of, hey, part of what's going to make me influential is I'm going to draw this other person out. I want to understand where they're coming from. And that is a skill of curiosity. And here's the thing. I got some white hair. I see some other white hair here in the group. A lot of us have lived a while and long enough to kind of know some things. And one of the things that happens as we age is we get more and more set in our ways. In fact, our curiosity will decline if we're not careful, if we're not deliberate about it. Why? Because we want to know something. We want to feel like, yeah, we actually know a few things. And living in uncertainty is incredibly difficult. It's stressful. We don't want to be in uncertainty. We want to move to certainty, to security. Curiosity is going in the opposite direction. It's saying, I'm not a know-it-all, I'm a learn-it-all. Right? I'm not a knower, I'm a not knower. And that's why it's very easy for small children to be curious. Any of you have small children? I know a lot of you do, right? I mean, there is an age between the ages of like 3 and 6 where your children just won't stop asking you questions over and over again. And to the point where you're just like, enough already. I don't know why. I don't know why the light actually works. I just get an encyclopedia, you know? Ask Siri. I can't figure it out. Their level of curiosity should be inspiring to us, right? We want to cultivate that. Why? Because it allows us to stay flexible. It allows us to stay open to new ideas. And when we're open to new ideas, guess what? The people around us are going to be open to our ideas. If we're rigid and we're firm and we're certain, it actually causes people to push against our certainty unless they already agree with us. If they already agree with us, we'll make them feel secure. That's fine. But guess what? If they already agree with us, then you've already influenced them. It's not that hard. I'm talking about when it's difficult, when people are resistant, when people are putting up objections. That's when you want to slow down, be a little less certain, right? Make it a little bit more tentative. Because if we're certain, we trigger in other people this sense of control and autonomy, and they're going to be resistant to our certainty. It's just the way human beings work. So stay curious. Now, how many of you think you're curious people? How many people feel like you're curious? Okay. That's everybody. You liars. No, it's not true. You are all curious. However, when is it hard to be curious? When is it hard to be curious? Because let's be honest, there are times where it's more difficult to be curious than others. When is it hard to be curious? I want to see somebody put in the chat for us. When do you notice that it's hard to be curious? I'm just looking. When you feel like there's not time, yes. That's a great one. When your opinions differ, right? Yep. So hurrying, time, and then this kind of difference of opinion. When you're worried about being nosy, like you don't want to ask too many, you're curious, but you're kind of regulating that because you don't want to try to get into anybody else's business. I love all of these, right? Generally, What's really hard for us to be curious is when we've made a decision already, when we kind of judge somebody. Oh, you're that kind of person. If you're one of them, I'm not interested anymore. It's very hard for me to be curious about one of them because you're not one of us. And so one of the things that I want to encourage you to do is to practice curiosity. And here's some ways to do it. This is an exercise that we don't really have time to do today, but I'm going to ask that you practice and play around with this. I want you to notice the difference between when you or somebody else is asking open-ended questions and when they're asking closed-ended questions. Okay. And so I want to just talk about this because we've heard about this before, but I find that most of us are not as deliberate about our questions as we could be. So the first thing, closed-ended questions. Closed-ended questions are the ones people ask the most in my experience. We ask questions that start with did you, could you, have you. In your interviews, watch, your interviewers are probably going to be asking you closed-ended questions. Did you ever work for somebody that did this? Well, the answer to that is either yes or no. They're forcing you into a binary answer. Okay. And that is triggering our sense of autonomy. Now, this person is in control of the conversation. They're steering it where they want to go, and they're steering it most of the time to confirm their own assumptions. This is not a curious question. This is a question to confirm what you already know. Now, are there times to ask closed-ended questions? Absolutely. If you are interrogating somebody or prosecuting somebody, closed-ended questions are great. In fact, the rule of prosecution is only ask yes or no questions and never ask a question you don't already know the answer to. Okay. Now, as an influencer, though, when you start asking people closed-ended questions, they start to clam up. The other side of this is open-ended questions. Open-ended questions, you can know a question is open-ended very quickly because they start with the words how or what. How or what. If you ask a how or what question, you allow the talker to answer freely because how something happened is going to be from their perspective. It's going to be from their point of view. What they did, they're going to talk about all kinds of different aspects of it because it's going to be from their point of view. The other thing you can do is listen. Listen curiously. Listen to what lights this person up. Not just to what they're saying, but what they're excited about. What do their eyes light up? What does their body language light up? What is it that really matters to them? And then lean into that. Draw them out even more. Tell me more about this. I've heard of people going into interviews in which they didn't say anything. They just asked a couple of questions and some follow-up questions, and the interviewer talked the entire time. And when it was over, they said, boy, this person was amazing. Okay. It's possible. Now, I'm not recommending that per se, but what I am saying is that, especially in a networking conversation, in these types of things, people love to be understood. We're all desperate to be heard and to be valued. The way you can value somebody is to be present with them, to listen to them like you really want to understand. When you listen that way, you make somebody feel like they're the most important person in the room. And that, I'm sorry, we're all kind of self-centered. We all want to know that we matter. And the way you listen to somebody communicates so much more than whatever it is that you say. So listen curiously. Invite them, say, can you tell me more about that? Ask whatever somebody's saying, ask them to tell you more. Always follow up with one more question. They might say, we don't have time for that. I'll go into it later or whatever. And that's, look, not always that it works. I want you to experiment. I want you to play around with it like an exercise. Okay.
Yeah. So Jeff, I just wanted to reiterate how important this is that you talked about the open-ended questions. So most people we also call them like behavioral questions when you're being interviewed. And people get really nervous about preparing for them, but you should look at it as something that's really positive, because if you're in an interview and you're having a conversation of a back and forth, as opposed to an answer yes or no, question yes or no, things like that, it's much better if you're able to walk away after the interview that you had a good conversation. And the other thing is that at the end of an interview is usually when they say, do you have any questions? Well, that's the last impression they're going to have of you. So you're not going to ask questions that they can just say yes or no. Do you guys have this benefit? Do you, at this company? Ask things like the how and the what, because that's the last impression that you're going to be giving. So I really, really love this. This concept of the curiosity and the open-ended questions. And even though you're being interviewed, how you have the opportunity to embrace those questions and then to ask those questions. I love it.
Great. Okay. I'm just looking at time. I want to keep going because I want to make sure we have some time for people to make questions and comments at the end. So we have advocacy and we have inquiry. And then there's a third aspect of this. But before we get that, this is why curiosity is so important. And somebody put it in the chat already. It's a famous quote from Stephen Covey, but I'm sure it goes even further back. And this is just kind of human nature. But if you want to be understood, seek to understand. Part of the challenge that we face is that we oftentimes can really know what it is we want to say. We've spent time thinking about it. We're really prepared for it. And we go into an interaction and we got it loaded in the gun and we're like, I'm going to advocate, boom, because I've been preparing my message because it's what I know. And we're so much more likely to lean towards what we know than what we don't. The problem is that somebody else is doing the same thing. And they're not open to hearing you because they have their own message in their head. And if they're not going to be hearing you, there's no reason to talk. So one of the things that you can do is just recognize this and regulate yourself. Say, I know I want to talk about this, but I'm going to put it on the shelf. I want to draw this person out first. I want to understand where this person's at first. If I've done that, they're going to be much more likely to listen to me. Yeah, be interested, and it will make you interesting. The most interesting people are the ones that are interested in us. So thank you for that, David. I love that. Okay. Now, I want this idea of persuasive bridging. There's this skill that we talked about earlier. In order to bridge, in order to hear where somebody's at, you get where they're at, and now you want to take your point off the shelf, but you want to connect it to what they care about, right? You don't want to just kind of go in and what we normally do is we hear somebody and we say, yes, but, and then we say, here's my point of view. And if somebody said yes, but to you, what do you reply back to them? The next sentence. Next sentence is, well, yes, but. So here's what I want to do. I want to give you guys a quick game. I don't know if this is going to work because there's a very large group and I'm not sure if everybody is actually here or they just have this on in the background, but we're going to try this out. I'm going to put you into a breakout in just a minute. And in that breakout, you're going to be with a partner. Okay. And I'm going to give you a total of like 3 minutes with your partner, and you and your partner are going to plan a party, a reunion, a high school reunion. And you have an unlimited budget and you can do whatever you want. So you can go wherever you want. You can spend whatever money that you need to spend. And the only thing is that one of you is going to start by making a suggestion. I think we should rent out cruise lines and have like a fleet of cruise ships that we can all stay on. Yes. And then the next person is going to respond, and their response has to start with the words, yes, but, and they have to kind of finish the sentence. Yes, but people get seasick in these cruise lines. What if we get COVID? And then the next line will be, yes, but we can fly doctors in and we'll have doctors on the boat. Yes, but nobody trusts doctors these days, and it doesn't matter. They'll get sick too. Yes, but, and just back and forth. Yes, but, yes, but. And I'm going to do this for a total of 3 minutes. That's 1 minute to get yourself situated and 2 minutes to try this out. I want you to notice what it's like to do this and what emotions arise as you do it. Now, I have no idea how well this little experiment worked here, but I'm hoping you got a chance to kind of yes, but each other a little bit. We had a couple people in the main room just played here, so I got to listen to them. We are experts at yes butting. I mean, really, Scott's yes buts were just absolutely professional, really kind, really nice. Yes, that's really nice, but, and then just slamming somebody with a butt. Just erasing everything that went before, and just really kind of negating their idea altogether. Did anybody have that experience? Anybody were you able to do some of that? You got some butts in there? Great.
Yeah, I think when I did it, we we just wanted to one up each other, and we were not listening. We just wanted to come up with a better idea than the other person.
I love this. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you recognize this. When we have this mindset, we're actually not listening to the other person. What are we listening to? What are we listening to?
We're listening to our own head, trying to think of, oh, sorry.
Yeah, our own thoughts. We're listening to our own internal dialogue, monologue. We're waiting for this. We're not really, we're just waiting for them to stop talking so that we can start adding what we want to add. Now, at the risk of this totally falling off the rails, I'm going to put you back into your breakout room. Okay. And when you get there, I want you to do the same thing, but erase whatever went before. And I just want you to change one word. So instead of saying yes, but, I want you to say yes, and I want you to add something to the conversation. Now, here's the deal. What you add has to come out of what they gave you. So it can't just be some random idea. So if they say, let's go to Puerto Rico, it should be yes, and, right, we can learn how to dance like Puerto Ricans, right? We can take all those, we take classes in merengue, right? Yes, and we can also have them, we can do a dance party and have a dance contest. Yes, and we can have prizes, blah, 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 for the dance, right? What you say based on what the other person say. So what I want you to do is just try this out with each other here, if you don't mind. Let's all play. So I'll give you a suggestion. See if you can yes and my suggestion, okay? All right. I think that we should take everybody on hot air balloons in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Yes, and we'll have a great overview of the entire view of the city, and that will be fabulous. People will just love that as an experience. They'll remember it.
Great. David?
Yes, and I think the idea of being out in Santa Fe, the culture out there is just phenomenal with the American Indians and everybody else that's out there. Absolutely.
Yes, and maybe we can find a kind of a cultural ambassador for some of the Native American tribes that are out there that can help kind of teach us more about some of the ways of their culture. Michelle?
What a great idea. Yes, and we can also have them participate in some Indian culture. Maybe they can learn some of the traditional dances.
And I'd like to add that maybe we can travel into the mountains surrounding Santa Fe and all the other areas that might be available to us and make a couple of day trips out of it.
Amazing. Okay, great. We're going to cut here. I'm going to bring everybody back. This is very short. I'm just paying attention to time. I'm way over. So Elisa's like, what are you doing, Jeff? I told you an hour. Okay.
Thank you.
People are really
yes,
enjoying
thank
this
you.
chat. That's
Thank you.
all
Well
good.
done. Well done. All right, we're bringing everybody back now. Nobody wants to come back, though. They're in the middle of a really impressive conversation. You see it takes a little longer. Okay, welcome back. Were you able to get a couple of yes ands in there? I know it was very short, but I'm also just watching the clock here. So what did you notice about how you listened this time? Did you notice anything different about how you listened?
There was sense of
Yes, Sue.
excitement
Oh,
when there was
Go
an
ahead, Alpa.
agreement.
Go ahead, Alpa. Alpa, can you say that again? I was talking over you. I apologize.
There is a sense of excitement when there is an agreement.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Definitely builds a much more emotional quality, a positive emotional quality. Yep. Sue?
You have to pay closer attention because you're going to have to take what the other person said and then build.
That's right. That's right. That kind of attentiveness, that kind of listening to build with is something I want you to cultivate. It is the kind of listening that great influencers apply to every interaction they have. It's this ability to, and it is the skill of an improviser, right? It's what we train improvisers in, is this ability to collaborate and co-create with somebody else when it's not what you necessarily wanted or expected or even agree with. You know, just because you accept it doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You can have big disagreements, but accept that's where this person is at and listen underneath what they're saying for what they care about. At some point, there's a way in which you might align on what it is that you care about. Okay, I only have a few minutes left here, and I want to make sure that we get a chance to get through the last part of this. And I just want to, there's a couple of resources that I want to share with you. So we just did that's the improviser's mindset. And here it is, right? This is the key to really effective bridging, is listen for the offer. Now, that's a term that comes out of improvisation. Whatever anybody says or does, I want you to think of it as an offer. It's an opportunity. It's what they're giving you to work with. It may not be what you want. It may not be what you like, but that's what you got. That's what they're offering to you. Accept it, because you can't change it anyway. Accept it, right? Listen for it, accept it, and build it. Okay. So when we think about bridging, you really want to listen for what it is that they care about, connect to what they value, right? And they're not always going to tell you that. You have to listen for it between the lines, acknowledge their point of view, and build a bridge of common ground. Okay. So let me just pause on that. This last piece, build a bridge on common ground, right? Where do your point of view and their point of view align? What is possible? What connection is possible? If you are creative and you listen for it, you will find it. It doesn't mean you have to throw away your own point of view. It doesn't mean you just have to give in and compromise. It means you have to listen for where are the opportunities for connection, okay? And that's a very particular kind of listening. Now, a couple of things I just want to give you. These are two of my favorite resources. The one is called the trust equation. And the idea here is, it comes from a writer named Charles Green in a book called The Trusted Advisor. And essentially, when you're influencing, you want to be trustworthy. You want to appear as if you're trustworthy. And what he said is your trustworthiness is determined kind of like a math equation. It's determined by your credibility. Do you know your stuff, right? Do you have the background? Do you have the expertise, right? Do you follow through? Can I trust your word? Your reliability, right? Have you been there? Do you show up regularly? Can I count on you? Have you given me a track record? And then the last one is intimacy. And this is one that we oftentimes shy away from because it's kind of again, a soft skill here. But intimacy is this ability to see and be seen. Do we really get each other? That's where people were talking about eye contact in the chat early on. Eye contact is difficult because it communicates intimacy, this ability to see into each other. Also, it means you have to be revealed. You have to allow other people to really see you. The more guarded you are, the less intimate you are, the less people are going to trust you. All of these things are divided by self-orientation. If you perceive that somebody is focused on what they want, not what you want, your trustworthiness is going to go down. So when you're in an interview, yes, you want the job, but make sure that you're connecting to the fact that the interviewer wants to find the right person. Because guess what? If you're not the right person, that's not the right job for you. And so you want to help them get what they want, and it'll help you get what you want. If you show genuine interest in them, you're going to decrease your self-orientation and increase your trust. The other thing is a book called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. It's a very famous book. It's been around for a long time. He came up with 7 principles of influence, and I just want to go through them very quickly. One is reciprocity, right? We are hardwired to give back in kind when we get something unexpected. So I want you to think about, when you're going into the interview, what is something I can give this person? How can I be generous in this interview? If I'm generous, I show up with a generous spirit, I'm more likely to get generosity back. The other is commitment. We are very hardwired to be consistent with what we say and to do what we say we've done. And so if our track record is such, we have a commitment bias. Social proof. We tend to buy into what everybody's doing, right? So if other people are doing it, we want to follow the lead of people that are similar, right? And this last one is super important, especially for you guys, is liking. Human beings are hardwired to like people that are like us and to be influenced by people who share our values. If we can find ways in which we can be likable, which is why you want to smile, right? And you want to show up and find ways that you're similar. If you've both gone to the same college, guess what? You're way more likely to get hired. It doesn't make any sense. It's not logical, but this is what persuades people. So think about what they might be wearing. You want to dress about the same way that your interviewer's dressing. If you can figure that out, you're going to show up. You're going to be like them. They're going to be much more persuaded by you. Also, a couple others. Authority, right? We trust people that seem like an expert. This is why your costume matters. If I showed up here in a hoodie or just some kind of ratty t-shirt, right? Or if I had tattoos, I don't know, if I didn't look a certain level of professional, you wouldn't take me as seriously. Now, maybe you would give me the benefit of the doubt and you'd listen to me, but I might have to overcome that hurdle, right? So I put on a button down for all of these, this is not how before this, I was wearing, the bathrobe essentially, right? If I showed up in a bathrobe, this workshop would have been very different. Okay. Scarcity. We are hardwired to want something that we can't have, or it's difficult to obtain, right? Only 3 left, right? Whenever there's scarcity, we tend to be persuaded by it. And then the last one is unity. And this is one that I think you also want to really pay attention to. Can you share the identity of others? How do you have a shared identity with the people that you're trying to work with? What are the values that they care about? How can you connect to those? All right, I'm going to give you all these slides, so I'm going to stop sharing here. We have a few minutes left. I also have time to hang around afterwards. I'd love to hear any thoughts or questions that you have in our final minutes here. And sorry, I'll put up just one last thing here. I always forget to do this. But I want to give you guys my contact information. So if you want to take a screenshot, this also is a digital business card. You can scan that. And this is going to be also in the PDF that Elisa sends out. So just give you a chance to do that. And there you go. So
thank you, Jeff. This was fabulous. We really appreciate you being a guest speaker for us at JVS JobSeekers. People were so engaged, and we just want to thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been my pleasure. It really has been.